Ghastly Roommate. Edenemy. Chapter 9, The Baron. What? Notes. See the end of the chapter for notes. Chapter text. Baron Draxum. The name rattled around in Yuichi's mind as he stood at the door of the apartment Donnie had given the address of. Yuichi's hands were shaking so badly that he could barely read the words on the small scrap of paper the address was scratched on. Yuichi was terrified of what was beyond that door, so he thought back to the conversation he'd had with Leo not 20 minutes prior. "Where are you going this time?" Leo asked. Yuichi hesitated. Leo couldn't know what he was planning to do. "I can't tell you," he said. "Can I?" "No," Yuichi snapped. He didn't mean to, but the way Leo looked at him, Yuichi looked down. "No, you can't come with me." Leo paused for a moment before saying, "Why?" He was upset, and Yuichi knew why. First, Yuichi had snapped at him. Leo considered him his best friend. It hurts when your friend gets angry with you. Second, through Yuichi was the only way that Leo could talk to his brothers. If Yuichi was gone, it was like yelling to someone on the other side of the Pacific. Yuichi turned away to spare himself from his friend's hurt expression. "This is the last time, Leo," he said. "I promise." He had meant that, but probably not in the way Leo expected. Yuichi glared at the door in front of him. He didn't know what was behind it, other than a dangerous, genocidal criminal. What had Baron Draxum done to that tiny apartment? Had he made a new lab behind that door? What would Yuichi find back there? He shook the thought away. Whatever horrors were waiting for him behind that slab of oak, he could handle them. For Leo, Yuichi knocked on the door. He heard footsteps. They were getting louder by the second. Yuichi started involuntarily backing away, his hand on his katana edgewings hilt. As the footsteps quickened in pace, they stopped. Someone fumbled with the lock on the door, cursing under their breath. There was a hollow creak as the door opened, revealing. "Boy, what are you doing here?" April O'Neil asked, standing in the doorway. Yuichi's eyes widened. "April, what are you doing in Baron Draxum's apartment?" April raised an eyebrow at him. "Baron Draxum? This is my apartment." That didn't make any sense. This was where Yuichi was told to go. Unless, Yuichi gasped. "You live with Baron Draxum." "What?" "No." April smacked her forehead with the palm of her hand. "Barry lives in the apartment above mine." She pointed up to emphasize her statement. "Hold on. What are you looking for Draxum for?" Yuichi didn't hear her last question, as he was double-checking the card in his hand, and, yup, he was a floor too low. Stupid shaky rabbit hands. He stuffed the card in his pocket and ran toward the staircase, ignoring April yelling for him to stop. He bounded up the steps two at a time, and when he finally reached Draxum's apartment door, he froze. Yuichi looked at the card in his hand, comparing it to the number on the door. They were the same. This was Baron Draxum's apartment. For real, this time. The anxiety Yuichi had been feeling just minutes ago that had vanished while he was running up the stairs, suddenly all hit him again like a truck. His hands shook and his throat closed up, and his heart rate increased, and his breathing quickened, and his vision swam, and he knew that if he didn't knock on that door the second he was going to lose all nerve and run. So he knocked. Yuichi heard a groan and a gruff voice say coming, before muffled, heavy footsteps dragged toward the door. Yuichi didn't know what he expected to see behind the door. He may have been slightly hoping it was the wrong address again. He'd rather deal with the shock of twice embarrassment than meet an exiled war criminal. But he knew that this was the only way to bring Leo back. A sharp click of the lock made Yuichi flinch, and the door creaked open, and behind the door stood, well, it was definitely Draxum. He had the same face as the wanted posters, but Yuichi wouldn't exactly say that a bathrobe and a pair of pink bunny slippers made him look very barren. Why? The shock of it all made Yuichi let out a sharp laugh before covering his mouth with his paw. Draxum gave him an offended look. "Excuse me, child, do you not know who I am?" That made Yuichi laugh again. "Yeah, Baron Draxum," he said. "Sorry, I was expecting more. Like I don't know, not a dad bod, I guess." Draxum stared at him. "Dad bod?" "Yeah," like he waved his hand vaguely at the Baron. "I thought you'd be more muscular and scary." Draxum leaned on the doorframe. "Why is another teenager coming to my apartment to humiliate me?" he groaned. First the turtles, then the students, and now this. That comment made Yuichi remember why he was here. "Oh," he said, "I need your help." That earned him a glare from Draxum. After that, "I should have half a mind to throw you off a roof right now." "It's about the turtles." Draxum's face grew tight with concern. He opened the door. Very well, then, they sat down at Draxum's small table, and Yuichi told him what he was planning to do. After Yuichi was done explaining, the Shipyoke steepled his fingers in front of his mouth and muttered what sounded like a prayer in a language Yuichi did not recognize. "Let me see these resurrection instructions," Draxum said. Yuichi pulled the image up on his phone. Another thing he found funny about the Baron was that he pulled out a pair of glasses to read the words on the screen. Draxum handed the phone back after a few moments. He seemed a little bit shaken. At first, I wasn't sure your source was reliable, but he tapped a claw on one specific word, the keystone. I've only seen that name in one other book. He looked at Yuichi. Do you know what a keystone is? The rabbit shook his head. I was hoping you would. Draxum closed his eyes. I do, he said. Yuichi looked at him expectantly. A keystone is a mystical artifact. It can trap spirits. He paused. But it can also set them free. Small keystones are used by mystic priests and exorcisms. Resurrection spells, though he looked at Yuichi's concerned face. Why do you want to bring Leo back? Did he ask you to? The question caught Yuichi off guard. No he didn't, he said. I just want to reunite him with his brothers. That's all, Yuichi nodded. That's all. No it's not. Draxum raised an eyebrow at him. And for a moment, Yuichi feared the sheik could hear his thoughts. The spell can be done, Draxum said. Do you have the other ingredients? Yuichi tilted his hand in the universal cipher so. I have the cauldron, and I know where his mask is, but the keystone is what I'm stuck on. Draxum tapped his chin. You have a weapon with you. Oh, Yuichi had forgotten he brought Edgewing with him. It was for protection in case Baron Draxum really was as dangerous as he thought. He laid the sword on the table. Draxum hummed as he ran a claw up Edgewing's hilt. He stopped when he reached the gem on the end of the grip, before ripping said gem off. Hey, Yuichi yelled. My auntie crafted that sword. Draxum studied the gem for a moment before tossing it to Yuichi. There's your keystone, he said casually. What? Yuichi looked at the gem in his hands. It had never seemed mystical, though now he noticed a faint purple glow emitting from the stone. Draxum stood up. Come, rabbit boy, we've no time to waste. He walked toward the door. Let's bring my son back. Hold on, full stop, Yuichi said. First, I'm not walking around in public with a depressed old man in a bathrobe. Put some real clothes on. Second, your son. Draxum groaned again. He was good at that. Yuichi could almost believe he was a father. Yes, I created the turtles. They're technically my children. And, fine, I'll put some real clothes on. He emphasized that last bit with air quotes. Yuichi waited for him at the door. After a few minutes, Draxum came back wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. Only slightly less humiliating attire, but Yuichi could deal with it. Finally, they walked out into the warm, sunny afternoon. A beautiful day for resurrection. Notes. Sorry about the gap between updates again, guys. I had final sneezing face. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. We're nearing the end now, so buckle up. Follow my socials if you want to see more of me. I post a lot of art for a lot of fandoms lols. Insta, at Edenemy Art. Tumblr, at Edenemy Art. I don't really post on TikTok anymore, but I guys can still follow it if you want. At KilluaFrogs.